Coming up on the Sell Your Book podcast.
So those networking spawned into those referrals, but then it spawned into me being on camera on somebody else's space. And I'm building another network that I never even considered. There are people that don't look like me, they don't think like me, they don't believe like me. And having the opportunity to find at least a point of commonality, because the people that I'm presenting to or the people that invite me to present are not even people here in the States. So, I mean, I have done presentations in the UK. I have done presentations in India.
International, y'all. International.
In Canada, presentations in Africa, presentations in Italy, presentations in Spain, with people who are not even where I came from, people I've never met face to face. But it's given me the opportunity to become known and to understand that maybe I'm not for the people in my network. It's possible. It's possible that the content that I'm presenting is for another region who really has the need for what I have produced. And so now I have an open globe mentality.
I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's an opportunity to do business or at least to show my face in other places, our technology has enabled us to do so, where we are able to engage with individuals regardless of what continent, regardless of the time zone, regardless of nationality, regardless of belief systems. Our technology has been able to close the gap of our world, where we're able to deliver our message to the people that actually need it. And I think if I had to give any piece of advice to any writers who's already written or those who are aspiring to write, be open to the process and be willing to take down even what you have thought or even what you have imagined or even that you plan. Absolutely plan, but be willing to be agile. That's the whole point of the plan, is having that agility, because if you remain so rigid, you may miss your blessing, you may miss opportunities.
Welcome to Sell Your Book. It's the podcast for existing or aspiring self-published business book authors who want to know what's working right now to help you sell more books, get more clients from your books, and expand your opportunities. If this is your vibe, you gotta subscribe. Now, let's get into today's conversation.
Welcome to this episode of the Sell Your Book podcast. And I'm really excited for my guests. I'm excited for all of my guests. Let me tell you that. All of my guests are my favorite guests, okay? But I'm excited for my guests today. There's one particular reason why I'm really excited, and I'll tell you why in a second. But today we have with us Miss Teresa K. Page, and because my untrusty tablet decided I don't want to hold a charge, I have to go to my trusty phone. Hello. And the trusty readers. Okay, so just bear with me. All right. So Teresa K. Page is an author, a speaker, a coach, and a mentor. She is passionate about equipping women to realize their unfulfilled goals and to become the leader they were born to be. Teresa has a master's in business administration and a graduate certificate in life coaching. And she leverages both to design and deliver impactful content, programs, and services that inspire, motivate, and empower. She also hosts the podcast, the Women's Leadership Mindset Series, which can be found on YouTube and Spotify. And as an author, okay, listen, this is what I personally love, okay? As an author, Miss Teresa has an army, okay? An army of titles behind her, and they're all in a series that's called My Journey to Wholeness series. So she has My Journey to Wholeness, The Sojourn Continues, which was published in 2015. My Journey to Wholeness, Love Letters from the Throne, which was published in 2019. And hot off the press, this is why I'm excited for this conversation, is the My Journey to Wholeness, Love the Success Factor, which was just published. So y'all, we are getting the opportunity to talk to someone who just finished publishing their book and they're in the beginning stages of selling. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Welcome, Miss Teresa K. Page. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, Miss Denise Renee. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be with you on this morning.
Thank you. All right. So you just finished publishing a book. Are you excited? I'm excited. I'm excited for you.
I am excited. I am sleepy. I'm already
She's tired. She's tired.
I
It's
am
okay.
already tired, and the journey is really just beginning. But I am most thankful about it. I took a different route this time, but this one has been a long time coming. So I really do feel like if there's a such thing as a magnum opus, I do believe that this is my magnum opus because this has almost been a 10-year journey for me to be able to put this content in a book form. So I'm really excited about the outcome. There's still much work to do and a lot more to discover, but I'm excited for how we're moving forward on the journey thus far.
Excellent. So we're going to get into the titles. We're going to get into a little bit of what you do. The thing that why I really enjoy about how you have a whole entire series, I'm always telling people, sometimes people think they're just going to write this one book and it's going to have everything in it. And it's like, no, you can really only effectively communicate one idea, one main idea in a book. But the better thing to do is to really think about writing a series of books, whether they have the same title or not. That's up to you. I love the way you've done it, where it has basically the same branding. I'm like, that is brilliant. But to really think about what your topic is and digging into it and giving different aspects, I feel it just helps you in your whole author's journey, your whole author's career. It helps you build a brand. So this is why I'm excited to talk to you, because I'd love to get into how you even came up with that idea. And we're going to get into the goodies. But I'd like to start off with you sharing a little bit more about what it is that you do and how you got started.
Absolutely. So you already shared quite a bit during my bio. I've spent the last 20 years in the public as well as the higher education sector, as well as also with the federal government for the past 20 years. And so professionally, that is what I've been doing. But as of maybe 2021, when I came out of the education space, I decided that I really wanted to create a brand new world for myself, a brand new existence, so to speak. So I really wanted to know, is there a way to be able to create a second career as a writer, as a speaker, more so as an author, as a speaker? And I most recently added on the coach piece, maybe about a year ago. So that is still something that is still developing, but I've always been a lifetime mentor. And so I'm just really excited about this because writing has always been something that was a part of me. I don't believe that I've always lived through life understanding that I would be an author or that I would write books, but writing has always been a way for me to communicate. I came from a very big family, so usually when you come from a big family, it was 7 of us, 6 girls, 1 boy. And of course, everyone is always trying to find their voice. And so it can get lost in the crowd. So for me, writing has always been an opportunity for me to really express how I was feeling. I was always shy, kind of introverted, those kind of things. So writing gave me the permission to use as bigger words as I wanted to express all of my feelings in a way that I wanted to. And so as I got older, and especially since I moved to the Atlanta region, this was back in 2011. I was working on my master's degree and all of that, and I'm having this brand new experience. I have this brand new world now. And so kind of separated from my family, it was really a journey for self-discovery. Self-discovery as a woman, self-discovery as a purpose, because sometimes as a preacher's kid or coming from a large family, your purpose or your destiny is kind of defined for you. But stepping away out of that space, it allowed me to see, who is Teresa really? Who is Teresa as an individual, as a woman? What is Teresa's purpose? And so my journey as far as writing, and I'm still on this journey. But my very first book that was produced in 2015, it was more so of me being able to express what I was feeling, what I was experiencing, during the time when I first moved to Atlanta, all those years ago, while I was working on my MBA, and what that process of self discovery is. And so as I moved to book 2 and 3, it's still on that trajectory, but more so 2 and 3 is where you'll see the progression of my development. And so that's the reason why I write. I wanted to be a part of my life's purpose. I wanted to make sure it's going to be a legacy beyond my years and something that I trust that I'll be able to build it into something that will have a continuous legacy for generations to come. So that's where I am right now. So I'm still on this journey.
What prompted you? So it sounds to me like you were always like a journaler. You're always writing down your feelings. What was that spark that said, hey, you know what? I want to take some of these, I want to take this impetus and really write a book and become an author? Because you said you didn't necessarily see yourself as an author. You were just always a writer. You were like, okay. So what was that thing that made you say it's time to write a book?
I was as I think about that, as you asked that question, what really sparked me, there was actually a professor that I ran across. I used to admire her. I never had her as a teacher myself. She wasn't my professor, but I would always see her engaging in other events. And it always amazed me because she was a writer. She was an author of multiple books, or she was a co-author of a lot of academic type writing and different things like that. And I remember approaching her because not only was I a student at the time, but I was also an employee of the university that I was attending. So that came a little bit later. But watching her engage with the students at the time, and she would give her books away as a giveaway. And so one day I was prompted to kind of gather up some of my writings, some of my poetry, some of the messages or presentations I had done in the past. And I just kind of gathered them all up in a packet. And I was like, I wonder if I can do this. I wonder if I can do this. And I remember just gathering I don't know how many pieces of writing I gave her. And I put it in this big manila envelope. And I asked her, would you read these? Would you read
That's really gutsy.
Absolutely. I asked her, I said, will you read these and see if they have anything to it? Like, could it be put in a book where other people can consume or would be interested in? And to my surprise, as busy as she was as a professor, as busy as she was as a woman.
She wasn't your professor. So you didn't know her. And you said she wasn't your professor. You didn't have her for a class.
She wasn't my professor, but we were colleagues. Yes,
okay.
So we were colleagues. We engaged together because, as I mentioned, I was a student and an employee at the same time. So I did engage with her before, but she didn't know me from a writer's point of view. And so gathering up that packet, I took it to her, and she actually took time to read it. And not only did she take time to read it, but she also took time to kind of critique it. So she was going through the list. This is good. This is good. This is too preachy. This is too whatever. This is whatever, And so she was like, I really think you should, expound upon this area or those kind of things. So she was really breaking it down for me and helping me put things in the piles. And I took it from there that let me then start gathering some of the writings that I've done. A lot of the things that's in my first book is stuff that I'd already written over the past. And then there were some things that I wrote in real time. So, that's a wonderful thing about writers or authors is being able to repurpose items that they have already done. You don't always have to start from scratch. And so that is what I have found because I've been writing over the years, whether it was a paper for class or whether it was for a presentation or if I had to speak somewhere, gathering all that up and just determining what would be best for this particular book. So it was my first step. So whether it was right or wrong, it was something I wanted to do. And so I think that's what prompted me at the time, that kind of gave me that spark by watching her from afar. Like, I wonder if I could do that. And so I had forgotten about that particular instance. So thank you for jogging that part of my mind. I actually forgot about that experience. But that is what put me on this particular path. And so I'm still trying to figure out, can I really do this? So it's still an ongoing journey.
Girl, you are 3 books in, ma'am. I think the answer is yes. But I love how you reached out for help, and that she was so generous. Basically, she kind of like acted as your as a book writing coach, basically for you, helping you say, okay, this is good. This is where you can improve. This is, it's so important to get a second opinion, because as writers, if you consider yourself a writer, or even if you don't consider yourself a writer, but you want to write a book and you start writing, it's very easy to write it from a very introspective place without really thinking about, how is my audience going to kind of receive this, perceive this? How is it going to be useful to them? So even though she said, you made 2 pictures, like, and but that's good feedback that you need to hear, because you're like, okay, you want people who are going to buy and read your book to receive it. So that was great feedback, I think. So this is the Sell Your Book podcast. So I like to kind of dig into numbers numbers and methodology as much as my guests are willing to share. So you wrote the first book, you were a little bit timid and thinking, well, can I do this? You got, a great boost of confidence. You got some feedback. You went ahead, you put together your first book. How long did it take you to, I guess, go from getting her feedback to getting your first book publication ready? What was your process for getting it ready for publishing? And talk to us about that, and then we'll pick the story up from there. So what was the process of getting it ready for publication like for you?
Yeah, so I will say, when I started really thinking about, am I really going to take this step? I really didn't know exactly where to start, because I don't think we got that far into the conversation. So it was like, where do we start from here? And so I'm not going to pretend like, it was a huge process or it was a smooth process. But I will say that one day I was standing in line at the Publix in customer service. And I was like, well, where would I even go to publish a book, or how to even publish a book? And I literally was standing there in line. And where I was standing in line, they had the section where they have all of the books, the inspirational books and the greeting cards, all that section. I literally picked up a book and turned it around to look, who is the publisher? And I think it was a book by maybe one of the, television ministers and different things like that. And I was like, I like them. I like the way they projected the world. So who published their book? That's where I'm going.
Step 1.
Step 1. Discovery and customer service line at the Publix. That's exactly how that went. And I took that information as far as the publisher. I recognized the publisher, Nelson Zondervan. And of course, being a church kid, preacher's kid, Nelson Zondervan, you saw that name, whether it was on your Bibles or your Sunday school lesson.
That NIV, baby, that NIV.
Absolutely. So it was a name that was familiar. But then it was like, well, what did they do? And that's when I learned that they do publish more so academic, like more so faith-based academic type work. But as I did more research on them, I did find that they had other branches which would enable you to publish in other different directions, or based upon a particular genre. And so there was one of their divisions called Westbow Press. And I saw that is where self-publishing. And so I had never heard of self-publishing at that time. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to go that route or if I wanted to go through the traditional route. Truth be told, I took the path of least resistance. I'm not even going to pretend. I'm not going to fake the funk about it.
There's nothing wrong.
The path of least resistance. And
it's
I wasn't
the path to get you published.
Absolutely, because at the time I could not afford a literary agent to shop my book. I don't know that there was a sense of urgency on me at the time. And when I understood that self-publishing was an option, then I did my research and I contacted them to understand, I first did my research online. And then, of course, I contacted someone to see what is this really about. And so once I understood what the process was going to look like, then I was like, well, let's do this. you know, it was like setting aside the money to let me scrape up the pennies to do whatever it is I need to do here to get this book out into the market. And that's what I did. So it was more so from there, it was more so about choosing what I was going to put in the book. So as I mentioned, the common thing for me was at the time I was working on my MBA. I was just newly here in Atlanta. So I started putting together some of the writings and some of the discoveries that I was having either in my class or some of the discoveries that I've done, whether it was a message that I did in my church or something else like that. And I started compiling those, or even if it was just something that was on my heart, and I started compiling those. I didn't want it to be too big of a book, but I wanted to see if I could at least get together 100 pages. And so that's what I did. So after I made sure that my manuscript was presentable and that it was ready, I had a representative that worked along with me throughout the entire process. So we knew exactly what to do. So submitting that manuscript, making sure that it was Word ready in Microsoft Word, that it was structured right, that it was formatted correctly. Then I submitted that. And then the next step was to design that cover. And so, I was thinking, well, what will be the title? And that's when I came up with my journey to wholeness, because I'm like, this is a journey for me. And I was looking for my journey to wholeness because, again, this was a journey for me of self-discovery, understanding what my life's purpose is, being able to heal from past hurts. So that's how I decided that I was going to title the book. I can't even remember what really inspired the title exactly. But that was the title that I wanted to give it. And then we went into the cover design process. And so I wanted to find an image that would kind of capture what I was feeling. And it was a young woman that was free. And that's where you see the lady on the mountain with her hands thrown up as far as freedom and her hair blowing in the wind. I was looking for something like that. And that particular captured it. If you didn't figure out, purple is my favorite color. And so that's why.
It's the green color. It's the color. It's okay.
Yes. So purple.
It's very royal.
That was the purple that I went, very royal, very beautiful. So that was how I went through the process. And, once the manuscript, the design and all of that, and then of course having the opportunity to do that extra step of editing and all of that. So that's what that book process looked like. And so that was probably in March of 2015. And by May of 2015, the book, I got my very first author's copy, which I freaked out about, but that was the most exciting day, I believe, of my life, seeing my name actually on the cover of a book, to see, a vision realized. And so, that was the first step at that time.
Do you remember approximately how much you invested with the self-publisher to get everything together and to get that first proof in your hand?
I believe at that particular time, and certainly prices have definitely changed since that time. I want to say around that time, it was somewhere in between 1,100, 1,200. And that was to make sure that not only was the book published, but that it would also be distributed internationally. That would also, all of the things that's necessary, such as an ISBN, being registered with the Library of Congress, as well as some of the other perks and benefits that they offered along with that. And for me, it was more so about the distribution, making sure that it was in a place where I didn't have to be a wait for somebody to buy it. I didn't have to be there. So the fact that it was so widely distributed, I just discovered even this year, I didn't even realize my book was on Walmart. I knew it was on Barnes and Noble. I knew it was on Amazon, but I didn't realize how far of a net they cast in that particular instance. But that was pretty cool. So for me at that time, I felt that it was reasonable. I was like, this is something that is attainable. And so certainly I could set this aside to make this happen. And so, in my head, I was like, I'll be able to make this back. So it was something I was willing to invest that for this particular work.
Okay. Now let's get into making that back. So you have the book, you have your author's copy, you're excited, the book goes live, and now we got to sell the book. So, what did you do to get those first sales? Did you have a book launch? Did you tap into your network? Did you start blasting social media? What was your way for getting the initial sales for your book?
Yeah, so one of the things I will say, because I was new of being an author or taking the opportunity to be an author, I didn't necessarily know all of what I needed to do. So a lot of what I felt that I needed to do was very grassroots. Even today, it's still very grassroots for me. Because the marketing piece, as we know, that is a very expensive type of thing. So I don't have a problem with that. It costs what it costs, but until the sister can gather all the ducats to make sure I can, fully step out in that launch to do it, then we'll do it. But in the meantime, what I decided to do at that particular time, of course, was to announce it. I believe it was on Facebook. I think I was on Facebook at the time. I can't recall if I was on LinkedIn that long ago. It's possible that I was on LinkedIn. But I immediately wanted to, I created these book cards with the cover of the book, with a little bit of information about myself on the back, how to find the book. And I started distributing that to people that I work with, people that I knew at the time. So that was one way of me being able to get the word out about my book. I believe I also sent out an email because I wanted to host a book launch. And so sending out either invitations to a group of people that I was already in connection with to invite them to my book launch and those kind of things, or sending out email blasts to those who were already in my email account and people I've communicated with over the years to announce this book and to invite people to come to my book launch. And so that was how I was able to do that. And so during that particular time, a lot of my movement was using social media. And at the time, it was mainly Facebook. And of course, hand to hand or word of mouth, those kind of things. And of course, always asking those who read your book to refer it to a friend, refer it to a colleague. And at the time, I was investing in a lot of events. And so even though it was great, the events was a great idea. What I didn't do is I didn't really have the money stacked aside for all of these bright ideas that I was having. So it did put me in some precarious situations. I don't know that I would do anything different. However, that was how I did that. So it was a combination of social media, email communication, hand to hand, as far as like face to face, word of mouth, those kind of things, and of course referrals, and having a series of book launches. So not only did I have a book launch here, I had a couple here in Atlanta, but I also, was invited to go to other events where I was able to set up my table, to talk about my book. And so I was invited to do that a couple of times. So that was another way to get exposure. And that was in a different region. And I also had a book launch in the town that I grew up in North Carolina. So, having a couple of those kind of events, that was pretty much the marketing that I went with at that time. So it was very grassroots at that time.
Listen, there is nothing wrong with the grassroots, okay? Because grass grows. All right? Grass grows. So how would you say that you at least made back your investment in the book between, the initial, working with the self-publishing company, as well as, some of the events that maybe you paid into, or creating book launches? Would you say that you sold enough books to, at the very least, recoup what you invested?
I would like to say that I did. During that time, over the course of events, whether it was book launches or being able to be a vendor at an event or engaging with other people, And then, of course, individuals who work with me, once they found out that I did publish a book, even those who didn't come to the book launches, they was like, "Oh, Miss Page, we found out you did a book. I want to buy that." So, always having a book, always having a few books in the car ready, ready.
Listen,
ready,
as they say, stay ready. You ain't got to get ready, okay?
Yeah, I was ready. I had the gift bags, I had the books. I was ready. I always had a ready pen. I was, of course, you absolutely can't buy this book.
Because I got one.
Absolutely. I always got a ready pen. So, but that was a process. So I do believe that I was able to recoup, maybe even made a profit at that time. But what I'm finding now is that with this new book, it's an opportunity to kind of shine a light on the previous old book, 2 books that was published in 2019. There was a young lady I met many years ago at an event, and so she was telling me about delayed demand, and so what that looks like. So she was like, every time you publish a new book, it's still an opportunity for your other 2 books to get a new light on those. And so so that, I think, along with each book, it is kind of giving a brand new light to the previous books I've written, because the readers I may have now are not the readers that I had then. And so they're able to at least discover the woman that I was in 2015, or to discover the woman that I was in 2019, along with this new experience here in 2024. So yeah, it's still an ongoing process for me.
That's why I always like to recommend to people, don't just think about writing this one book that's going to do everything for you. The more books you write, it's like the first book is usually the hardest one. You've got to really get over that hump, get over all of your fears, get through the process, understand what the process is. But then now, once you understand a few things, the next time it becomes a little bit easier. You've gained a group of people over here on this side, and then now you can roll them into your next book. New people are discovering you on book number 2. You can let them know, hey, there's book number 1, and then boom, sales of book number 1 starts climbing up. And then, like you said, you're on to book number 3 now, and it's helping to boost the sales of book number 1 and number 2 without any additional effort. Like, we want this. We want this. Okay? It's not exactly passive income. I don't like when people really try to talk about passive income, because they try to make it like, it's like, oh, you just push the go button and it just goes. Like, no, with passive income, there's always an upfront investment of time, money, energy. But once you've created the things, such as a book, man, all you got to do is keep selling it, right? That's Absolutely. It. So did you keep up with your numbers? Would you know approximately like how many books you sold around that time? And the number can be skewed, because at this point, I'm sure after, 15, that's almost 9 years. I'm sure over the course of 9 years, you sold a lot of that first book. But how much would you say you sold maybe in like that first year? Just so people getting started could have like an idea to say, okay, all right, I'm not going crazy, or, so how many books would you say you sold in your first year?
I would say in my first year, in all transparency, it may have been somewhere between 20 and 30, if not maybe closer to 50. Mm-hmm. Only because, what I have learned, or at least what I'm learning, and maybe you've had the same experience, Denise Renee, is that I believed at the time that, and even now, definitely at that particular time, I believed at the time that the people that was within my network at that time, that they were my readers. And whether that was family, whether that was coworkers, whether it's people that I knew or people that I engaged with. And I have learned the lesson that people will give you a thumbs up. They'll put a heart on things. They'll give you a high five, congratulations, and all of that. But they weren't necessarily my readers. And so that is a huge lesson that I've had to learn and get over. And I'm not.
You trying to take me out on today? She said, "Get over it."
Because
Yes.
because
That's why.
if to judge on, and I think this is probably what a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just think it is a rude awakening when you find out that you may have a lot of followers, whether on social media or have a huge email listing and different things like that. And while there are a lot of eyes on that, they're not necessarily your readers. And so that was, as I mentioned, that was a rude awakening that I had to be able to digest and just get over it. And so over the course of 9 years, I'm still getting over it because it was like, because it's like, well, then who are my readers? Who are my
Who's your
readers? And
audience?
what I'm finding is, even though a lot of my writings is geared towards self-discovery, especially for women, a lot of my content is driven towards women. But what is surprising me is that more men find um, my writings and my content more interesting, which is totally weird because it wasn't written for the bros, even though the brothers could read it. But I did not
Maybe they're
expect
trying
you
to
to respond.
understand the women. They're reading you to understand the women in their lives.
Absolutely. And that was something that I never considered. Even up to book 3, the thought came to me. I'm like, I'm writing this again for women. But then the thought came, well, wonder if this is for the brothers. And so it's still, because all of this is still a work in development. I have the agility to be able to pivot. And I think that's the power of self-publishing, because even though you have to do all of the hard work, all of the grunt work, the rolling up of the sleeves, it still gives you a tremendous amount of power to be able to shift or to make some movements, or to be agile in the process. So, you know, as I mentioned, maybe about 20 to 30 books, maybe in my first year. And I will attribute that to most of my sister. One of my sisters, my sister Beverly, she traveled wherever I went. She would be there.
She was your hype woman?
I said, what?
Was she your hype woman?
She was. She was my hype woman. It didn't matter where I was, if I was in Atlanta, if I was in North Carolina, if I was someplace else, wherever I was having an event, she made sure that she was there front and center. And not only was she there front and center, because she was the first one that bought my book. And not only was she there front and center, but every time she came to an event, she would buy more books, more books. So it's possible that she was the only buyer of all of my books.
That's okay, because we need
my
buyers.
First year,
and
like
we need
probably
people getting the book.
20 of those 30 books. It's possible, because she would buy 3 or 4 books and she would give them to people at her job and all this other kind of stuff. It's so I'm like, Bill, listen.
It's all good.
Homes, but I'm not gonna be mad. I mean, but she's not with us anymore, so I definitely miss her with that. But at the beginning, she was definitely my hype woman. Wherever I went, she was there, so front and center. And so, but it encouraged me though at the time, like that this is worth something. And even she is my sister. She learned something different about me. She said, I thought, yes, she did. She absolutely invested. But it also helped our relationship, because she was like, I thought I knew Teresa, but I didn't. I'm surprised at who she is. I'm surprised at who the woman is, because again, coming from a big family, your identity is basically given to you. And so my book was helping her to understand who I am as an individual, not just as her sister, but as an individual. So that was a good blessing. So yeah, I was saying that first year was maybe about 20 to 30 books. It progressed as it's going along, but it's still coming along, because I intend to be able to sell all 3 of these books. But more so because I'm an unknown. And that's one of the things that self-publishing authors, and I believe a lot of authors, that's out there, they're unknowns. And so being able to step out of to break that barrier between the unknown and becoming known, that's a huge process right there. And it's a long game process, because it's just part of the hustle. I really believe, as far as with the self-publishing versus if you had a whole engine of a big publishing house behind you. Of course, they have all of the dollars, all the investment, and all of that. But if a person has the willingness to stay in the long game of becoming unknown into that known space, I think that's also going to help with sales and things like that. So that's something that I'm learning right now.
That is what I call building your audience. No, and it could be twofold because number one, knowing your audience, as you were saying earlier, who are the people who are going to find my book most useful? It's very important to know that. The more that you know that up front, the more you can tailor your content for your audience. But then also, it's also building that audience. Whether you're building your email list, you're building your socials, you're building, visitors to your website. So, what have been some things that you have been doing to build up your unknown to known trajectory for all of your books and for everything that you do?
Yeah, so everything that I've done thus far, especially as far as, once I established Teresa K Page LLC, as that author, as that speaker or coach and mentor, a lot of, starting out in this journey, this was back maybe we were still in the heights of COVID. So in 2021, as you know, we all were all locked down. And so, but at the time, networking from a virtual point of view, that was a huge thing. So at the beginning, I was doing a lot of aggressive networking. That is something that I'm going to have to get back into the mode of doing, because I kind of put a pause on that. Yeah, because network burnout after a while, so I kind of put a pause on that in the fourth quarter of 2023. But I do feel compelled to get back into that mode. But at the very, very beginning, it was more so about that aggressive networking. And then it wasn't just about the networking, but then out of the networking, having those one-on-ones with individuals of interest, not necessarily to sell anything, where I'm not trying to sell anything to them or they're not trying to sell anything to me, but we're literally just trying to get to understand who we are, what we do, how we serve the world, and to learn, is there a way for us to be collaborators? Is there a way to be partners? Or is there a way for us just to be great referral partners? And those conversations often did lead to connecting the dots to other individuals that we felt like would be a person of interest to them. So it was kind of like that give and take, making sure that you were able to refer one another. So that's a lot of how my virtual space began to grow, as far as with the networkings, the one-on-ones, the referrals, and then a lot of those opportunities then turned into collaboration of being a partner and being invited to speak on different individuals' platforms. And so whether it was as a panel or to be a presenter or just to say hello or just something like that. So those networking spawned into those one-on-ones. It spawned into those referrals, but then it spawned into me being on camera on somebody else's space. And one of the rules of marketing is being able to maximize on somebody else's audience. So that is how people are getting to know me, but not just, again, outside of my network, of the existing network that I had. And I'm building another network that I never even considered. There are people that don't look like me, they don't think like me, they don't believe like me. And having the opportunity to find at least a point of commonality, that has been my thing. And also having an openness to step outside of your realm or your comfort zone, because the people that I'm presenting to or the people that invite me to present are not even people here in the States. So I mean, I have done presentations in the UK. I have done presentations in India.
International, y'all. International.
In Canada, presentations in Africa, presentations in Italy, presentations in Spain, with people who are not even where I came from, people I've never met face to face. but it's because of those virtual connections. I feel like I know these people, and I've never seen these people in real in real life, but it's given me the opportunity to become known and to understand that maybe I'm not for the people in my network. It's possible that the content that I'm presenting is for another region who really has a need for what I need, or has a need for what I have produced. And so I'm having to be open to that. So it's still a discovery for me. I won't say that I have a whole plan. I know I plan things out of how I want it to go. Now, how it actually goes, that's a whole nother bag of chips. Just a whole nother bag of chips.
It's the journey.
It is a part of the journey. And so now I have a open globe mentality.
I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's an opportunity to do business, or at least to show my face in other places, our technology has enabled us to do so, where we are able to engage with individuals regardless of what continent, regardless of the time zone, regardless of nationality, regardless of belief systems. Our technology has been able to close the gap of our world, where we're able to deliver our message to the people that actually need it. And I think if I had to give any piece of advice to any writers who's already written, or those who are aspiring to write, be open to the process, and be willing to take down even what you have thought, or even what you have imagined, or even that you plan. Absolutely plan, but be willing to be agile. That's the whole point of the plan, is having that agility, because if you remain so rigid, you may miss your blessing, you may miss opportunities.
Have you, as a result of getting like more of these types of speaking opportunities?
All right, real quick, we need to talk about something, because every time you go to a conference, attend an online summit, or you're listening to a podcast, you're being taught by somebody who wrote a book, and it's working your nerves because you know you need to write a book too, because you're missing out on these brand building and money making opportunities. Maybe you haven't written your book yet because you don't know what topic to write about, or you don't know how to structure your book in a way that positions you as an expert. You may not even be sure exactly how you're supposed to be getting clients from your book. No worries, because I got you. Download my free 4 steps to book writing success, and it's going to give you the solutions to the book writing problems you have and help you think through other issues you didn't even know you needed to. Head over to writingwithdeniserenee.com/4 steps. That's writingwithdeniserenee.com/4 and the word steps, no spaces. Let me help you get started writing your life-changing and business-changing book right now. I mean it. Hit pause and go to writingwithdeniserenee.com/4 steps, download it for free, then come on back. Hit unpause and let's get back into this conversation.
You may miss your blessing, you may miss opportunities.
Have you, as a result of getting like more of these types of speaking opportunities, and whether virtual or in person, do you find that you see a little bit of a spike of sales in your book after those?
Well, those have been within, these experiences have been within the last year or so. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, it's definitely been after my second book, which was published in 2019. We weren't quite in COVID then. So a lot of these experiences have been more so about since 2020 up until this point. And so certainly it's allowing people to understand. Certain people have bought my books as a result. As a result of that, it has opened up opportunities for people to either approach me either about being able to turn my book into a movie, or, considering opportunities for TED Talks. Well, I mean, there have been opportunities. People are always reaching out. You don't know what's a scam, what's not.
But you know what? You know what I like to think of that as? I'm like, okay, you might be a little scammy, but the fact that somebody is asking means that that's in the realm of possibility. Come on.
It is
I
a
love
realm of
it.
possibility, and it's
Yes.
opening up my head to possibilities that might be up the road ahead. And I think, and that's what I'm saying, there's always somebody that's reaching out. And so it's kind of like shifting through the scam, like which is scam, which is not. Definitely being able to do your research and being able to recognize what is a scam, what isn't, what does a legitimate email look like, what does it not look like. Being able to, if someone is saying that, oh, well, I'm reaching out to you on behalf of this publishing house, and boop, 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 boop. Okay, let's see. So I'll reach out to the publishing house. Did you? Are you?
Is this your
is,
employee?
is this valid? And so what I have learned from those experiences, trying to determine what is real and what is not, or what's trying to take advantage of me, even just the responses from those bigger publishing houses to say, well, did they give you this? Or tell them to give you this. And so that will let you know if this is a genuine opportunity. So I have added that now to my conversation. So if someone is asking me for something, okay, thank you for reaching out to me. Can you provide me a copy of so I can review? Can I
What I'd
see
love to
the
know.
accept?
What are
I
you
believe it
asking
was
for
an
a copy of?
acceptance letter. That's what the publishing houses basically said. It's usually to prove that something is legitimate, especially if a literary agent or quote unquote literary agent is reaching out to you. They should have an acceptance letter from that big traditional publishing house if it's valid. So those are one of the pieces of information for a self-publishing author to definitely ask for. So if someone's reaching out, do you have, let me see a copy of that acceptance letter.
Game. I love it.
So if they
Thank you
can
for sharing
present
that
it to
game.
you, if they can present it to you, great. But 9 times out of 10, you'll hear crickets after that. You won't, you know. So, like even with all of those scammy opportunities, again, as you just said, it opens up your head to the realm of possibility that there is something within my content that could be turned into a movie, that could, lead to another opportunity. And so that's what I'm finding as I'm building my business, building community, that the networkings, the referrals, the collaborations is putting me on stages, is putting me in front of audiences that I would have never considered. Just to be here with you on today. And that's why I found that even preparing for this book in 2024, I didn't have to go looking for opportunities. Opportunities were starting to find me. And this is when, this was right before I published the book, when I really got serious about getting this book published this year. I was starting to find, as I was getting close to the end of editing, that there were opportunities that was presenting themselves this time. So I'm not having to flag down opportunities. They're actually starting to come to me, which is a blessing. So I think I finally feel like I'm in this moment of alignment. All of these books have been a progression. But as I mentioned, this book is actually delivering the message that the other books are kind of alluding to through this path on this journey. So I'm excited about what's to come from here. There's still much work to do, even though the book is now live. It's live online. It's now in ebook form as well as in soft cover, and there's a reference guide to this one. So I'm really excited about this. So now that it's live, I'm having the opportunities to either speak or to be on podcasts, or even to invite other authors onto my podcast. So that's another way of being unknown to coming into that space of known, by being able to produce my own content, because I may not get the stage, but I don't have a problem building my own. So there's nothing wrong with building my own and being able to spotlight other authors or other entrepreneurs who are still in the path of their journey. So if I can help someone in my same in my same boat from becoming unknown to known, if I could build a stage to do that as well, then I'm gonna do it along the way. So there's still much work to be done, but that's what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. Well, I know about your podcast. I was recently a guest, so thank you so much for that
Yes.
opportunity. I would love to know what are some of the things that you've done differently in this book. And one of the things that I'm excited for you in this book is that it really seems to be so tightly woven to like it's like going beyond your personal story. And now it's really moving into the work that you do through your company, the coaching and development that you offer. And it's really, like you said earlier, it's like your magnus opus. It's your manifesto. It is. This is why it's basically it's what I would call like a methodology book. It's like the reason why you do what you do and how you do what it is that you do. So I know you're at the very, very, very beginning stages. I love that, like you said, you've been getting opportunities even before the book got published to begin to speak about it. But just in these first, few weeks, literally, I think it was published like 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? Am I right?
Yeah, we didn't haven't even been a month yet. I don't think so. Well, you talk about brand spanking new.
Brand spanking.
Spanking new.
Tiny. But yeah, so even though we're in the really, really, really beginning stages, how have you seen just sharpening that message and creating that message? How do you see it shaping your future business opportunities? For doing more coaching, do you do more one-on-one coaching or group coaching? Because I think you present to companies and things like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so coaching is a brand new offering of mine, but the release of this book has stirred something up in me where I now want to get out into the world. I've been more in a virtual space since COVID, and it's been a long time. I've been inside for a long time. It's time to get out in the world, and I really yes. So I want to get outside to start engaging more hand to hand, face to face with people. While the coaching piece is great, I don't want to be locked into that. I'm finding that that's something I want to do. If I can mentor people along the way, help develop leaders along the way, and don't get it twisted. I will use coaching. I can coach, and I do want that to be an opportunity. But for me, it's not at the forefront. Gotcha. I really want to be able to step into this space as an author, to step into this space as a speaker, to step into this space to be able to develop other leaders and to understand that love is not just an emotion for us, but love can actually be implemented into our business models to make sure that we can surpass with our productivity and surpass our objectives and different things like that. So even though we say ill, yuck, love in the workplace, we need to learn how to embrace it and actually make it the helm of our organizations so we can make sure that we're bringing in better talent, that the teams that we have, that we're giving them autonomy, that we're positioning our companies to be more successful from a productivity type of point of view, and that we're also able to do our community work in a way that we need to do it. And love is actually a component, the catalyst that allows us to create more opportunities. And so that's how I want this to work. So we'll see. So we got the book, we got the conference, we got the merchandise. So let's see how this is going to go.
I mean, what I love about your message is that, think about, love in the workplace, right? We have HR policies against that. But think of how many people go to work every day doing something that they hate. How different would it be if you had a company full of people who love what they do, who love who they're serving, who love how they're doing it, and who love the group of people that they're doing it with?
Yeah.
How different would that be?
Absolutely, because I think we have misinterpreted love, and that's the thing. We
narrow it down to one thing.
Absolutely. It does have an emotional component to it. It has an emotional function to it. But what we don't know is that love is the most atomic superpower available to the human family. It is the enablement. And not only does it fit in the world of emotions, but it is our enablement to help to increase our knowledge, our wisdom, our understanding. It is the enablement to help us boost our creativity. It is the enablement to boost our benevolence. It is the enablement to help us understand who we are as natural born leaders. So if we could figure out how do we take love out of the emotional space and be able to translate it into a skill set and into a competency in the workplace, where we spend majority of our time, probably more so than with our families. And it can certainly work in the household, but if we're able to learn how to use love skillfully, we will find that there will be an improvement not only in our workspaces, but in our community at large and on the global level at large. And so, even though I'm coming from a faith-based perspective, I also am using there's a fine line where faith, science, as well as social culture, that they actually do agree. As much as we want to leave them in separate spaces,
the separation of church and state.
yes,
No,
there is a fine line where they do agree, and they are alignment, and it can work both for you in your faith spaces, your professional spaces, and in your personal spaces. And so I'm hoping that's what this book does. That was the goal. How do we make that through line where these three components that they unify in an effort to help us do business a little bit better? So, that's what my message is. And so I'm looking forward to see how this will change my business for the better.
Thank you so much for being open and honest. I used to be the kind of person where it's like, unless what I'm working on is perfectly done and perfectly the way that I want it to be, you're not going to hear it. I'm going to be on the mute challenge. I'm not talking about it. So I know it can be like challenging to not like, okay, everything's not the way I like it, but you know what? I'm gonna start talking about it anyway. So thank you so much, number one, for being so open and vulnerable with where you are right now. And I really wanted to have this conversation because of where you are right now, because there's so many people who are thinking about writing a book. They're thinking about starting a business. They're thinking about it, thinking, right? They haven't taken those first steps. And those first steps are scary, right? And we watch podcasts and interviews of people who are 10, 12, 13 years into being this big speaker and this big, doing what they do. And I have some of these people on my podcast, but I'm like, I also want it to be a place where people can see themselves no matter where they are in their journey. And so if someone is just getting started or just thinking about getting started, you are like a shining light for them and a shining example. So thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing what you shared. And you said something earlier about you made reference to something that I said on your podcast, where I said I'm going to be interested to see and look back in a year and be like, oh, this is where she was then. That's so cute. Right? But at the beginning of your journey, you have, like you said earlier, you thought your audience was this, but it's turning out to be that. You thought that you were speaking to these people, but now you're speaking internationally. So you just never know where the journey is going to take you. And I think not being afraid to take those first steps and seeing where things take you, I think that's where, so many brilliant things happen that you can't even predict. You're going to end up where you're going to end up, and it's going to be more and better and greater than you could have even imagined or planned for yourself. So thank you so much. If there's one parting word that you can give to someone who is just thinking about getting their book started, or maybe they've started writing something and they've kind of put it down, they got discouraged, what would be like your words of encouragement to them?
I would say my words of encouragement would be, I will have to say it took me years to write this book. In my head, it should have been written a long time ago, in my head. But what I am finding out is that when we are able to birth something or to release something at the time that we release it, is we're actually on time. And so I would just share to those who have been discouraged, or there was a bump in the road, or different things like that, I want you to understand that those moments of discouragements, those bumps in the roads, those barriers, are actually to utilize those as far as for your writing journey. Those experiences are actually going to actually be a part of your writing journey, and it should fuel it and be able to pull out lessons. There are lessons that you are experiencing as a regard as in regards to any bumps or barriers, or side roads or bunny trails that you might be experiencing. They're not happening by chance,
Not the
so
bunny trails.
utilize them. Say what?
I said not the bunny trail.
The bunny trails, because sometimes we try to get
Oh
away
God.
from something that's inevitable. We try to act like I don't hear this calling. You try to act like there's not a sense of urgency. What are we doing? We know when we're supposed to be doing something, and we act like we don't know that it's not there. We pretend like we don't hear the calling on the deep, or so we'll take bunny trails down another road to still feel important. Well, I'm still working over here, so I'm still feeling important. There's still something, but you're doing everything else except what you're supposed to be doing. And so my thing is that the journey is the journey. Your emotions are your emotions. Let them work for you. That's fine, but don't be duped by them. Uh, put those emotions in check. Sometimes you have to feel what you need to feel, but at the same time, stay true to the plan as far as being able, whatever content you are called to release into the world, make sure that you are committed to that. So even if you have to give just 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that, or if it's something that you've already written, or you believe that you can repurpose it or something like that, whatever the call is, start putting your hands on it again to move towards what it is, the finished goal. Because the truth of the matter is, your book is not for you. Your book is not for you. It may have your name on it, but it is not for you. It is not for your gratification. It's not for the sake of a hobby. Your book is for somebody else. It's for people, it's for a territory, or it's for a region to help solve a particular problem, or bring relief to a particular angst that is happening in the world. So for you to harbor, or to continue to harbor what it is that you're supposed to release to the world, it is robbery. And we don't want to be generational robbers. We need healing, all of us, especially as a result of COVID. So I would just encourage you, whatever you have a remedy, you are a remedy. So whatever your writing is going to bring a remedy to, I suggest that you would get to it and to start moving with a sense of urgency. And so those will be my last words. Our work is not for us. It is for another. It's for a people, a territory, or a region. So let's get serious about the work that we have to do.
And on that note, the doors of the church are open. Nothing. We ending right here. Y'all get started writing that book, and I'll see you in the next episode. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, so we said our pleasantries, and I turned off the camera and everything. Then my girls were like, "Yeah, so this is what I did for my episode." We doing it. Okay, and this is my fault too, because I asked her onto the show because I knew she was going to be doing a pre-sale campaign. I wanted to talk about what she was doing for pre-sale, and I completely forgot, and I was just getting into the conversation. But then she was like, "Yeah, so for pre-sale, this is what I was doing," and I'm like, "This is the stuff that we." I was like, "Wait, hold up." Real quick, I know you're enjoying today's conversation, but do you want to write a book that helps you get clients for your business, grows your audience, and expands your opportunities, but you don't know how to get started writing this type of a book that can help you produce these results? Even if you don't feel like an expert, the
very act of writing a book will help position you as one. And there is a proven path forward that will help you get what you want. I put it all together for you in my 4 steps to book writing success. Visit www.writingwithdeniserenee.com/4 steps. Not only do you get the steps, but I also give you videos for each step, breaking them down so that you would know your actionable steps to follow to get started writing your book right away. So hit pause on this episode right now and head over to writingwithdeniserenee.com/4 steps to download, and then unpause so we can get back into this conversation.
I was like, wait, I'm gonna create a new room because I didn't want to disturb the old recording. So cameras are back up, okay? So what's about this pre-sale?
Well, the pre-sale campaign, we all do it, try to create some buzz and things like that when we're preparing for a new book to come out. So I was like, well, you know what? I want to do this, but I want to do things differently. And so instead of just rolling out the book, I also wanted to shine a light on the companion pieces as far as like with my merchandise. And so I was creating these gift sets where either you could get the book, the reference guide, and a bookmark, or you could do a deluxe gift set. And I believe all of these was called Love the Success Factor or the Success Factor gift sets. And so, the first one was just the book, the reference guide, the bookmark. The second, the deluxe, was the book, the reference guide, the bookmark, a branded water bottle, branded journal of your choice that had different types of quotes from my books, on the front of it. And then there was the premium brand, which was the book, the reference guide, the bookmark, the water bottle, the journal, and I believe it was also a t-shirt, a branded t-shirt. So all of this wonderful, I kind of went in and to determine what my cost was going to be. So I calculated what it would do for all of this, to understand those of us who understand cost of goods sold, all of that, to figure out what is the best way to do this, to kind of bundle all of these things together, to give it a special little price here, and of course to give it a little break, so that it seemed more so as a deal, as a bundle, as a wonderful offer, and you get some cute stuff with it. Well, what I was telling you, Denise Renee, was what had happened is that I totally undercut myself as far as in pricing. So what didn't get me wasn't necessarily the merchandise. It was that John Brown shipping. Because the goal is to be able to autograph the books and then to send off whatever the gift set was, whatever people wanted to order, and different things like that. Well, even though I already included shipping, what I did not consider was what it was going to cost for things for me to ship, for things to be shipped to me. To me. So now that the pre-order campaign, now I am going to do a continuous, gift set that, people can purchase at any time. Mm-hmm. So that's always going to be something I'm going to offer on my website. So I'm going to put that up very soon. But what I have learned is, as a result, or my learning lesson, is that now I'm going to have to put money just to ship the foolishness back out. So let me say this, authors. If you're doing something creative, great. There's nothing wrong with doing something creative. Just make sure that your numbers are together, so that not only are you providing your readers something wonderful, something beautiful, but that it's going to be cost effective. It's going to make sense cost wise. So it'll be cost effective, but also to make sure that you also have a profit from it as well. So that is going to be very important as well. So make sure you get all of your components. So while I had all of my components, I didn't consider, especially if there are things that you're going to have to touch, such as if you need to autograph books before you actually send things out. So make sure that you also consider what it's going to cost for you for shipping, especially if you have any merchandise other than your books that you're going to include. So essentially, I'm going to I'm going to have to put in more money than what was already paid. But it's lesson learned because this, as I mentioned, this is ongoing. So even though it's funny to me, I had to laugh at it on yesterday. I said I'd be John Brown. Not only did I use up what little bit of profit I did have, but now I'm going to have to put in more funds since once everything is received, I'm then going to have to spend additional funds to get it back out. So make sure, take additional time. And even if you have to have someone else to look for it, but make sure that you're calculating all of the costs involved, your cost of goods sold, and make sure that you also put the appropriate percentage of profit for yourself. So everything won't, so that you do have some profitability from this experience in a way that's still not going to make sure that your readers are not don't necessarily feel like they have to pay such a huge cost on something. So you want to present value, but also make sure that you have profit for yourself as well. So yeah, that was a lesson. That was a hard lesson I learned on that one, but I don't know to do better. I've already started working out a way to do it better.
You don't know what you don't know. So it's like there's a limit to how much you can beat yourself up about it. You just got to try something, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, this is how it goes. So
absolutely, I've already started reaching out to a company to see are they able to do all of this, because what I'm finding,
fulfillment companies, yeah.
Yeah. So is there a company that will actually, that's what they specialize in as far as like bundling and different things like that. So I've reached out to them actually earlier this week, and they have reached back because I'm like, there has to be a more streamlined way to get this done in a more cost effective way that's going to make sense. And cost is not necessarily just money, dollars and cents. It's also time. It's also energy, and all of that. So you want to calculate all of those things and determine, do I want to be doing all of this, or do I want to contract or work with a vendor that can help take some of the load off of this, even though I'm going to partner along with them? So if you could figure out a way to do that, I would say figure out how to do that early in the process. So learn from my lesson. Make sure you calculate well.
Yeah. I also pulled the cameras back up because I wanted to also get into what was your pre-sale campaign? What did you do to kind of get those first initial sales going? Pre-sales are key to getting a good launch. And if nothing else, not just only making some money off the book, but it's just like, it feels good to be like, okay, I brought in 50, 60, books sold within the first week or something like that, or maybe it's 100 or more than that. So what did you do to prepare for your launch? And particularly, what are some lessons that you learned from your first and second book that you put into preparing to launch this book?
Well, this book was definitely different because even though I am still using the self-published route, I did not use the same company that I used for my first two books. I bumped into a lot of readers over the last couple of years that really spoke highly of KDP, Amazon's KDP, which is their Kindle distribution publishing. And it is a way for authors to be able to get their book to the market very quickly without any cost. And that's the crazy part. It's like without any cost, but you totally own how you design it, how it's put together, how it's going to look. So because I'm a stickler on a lot of formatting and different things like that, I absolutely love this process. I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know if they were going to assign someone to me or those kind of things. So what I'm finding is that I might keep using this. I might, because, even since the book has gone live, I caught something that needs to be moved a little to the left, just a smidge. And that's not something that you would have the agility to do with self-publishing companies. There's someone that usually does that, and you would have to communicate back to them how you need any adjustments done. And depending after you use up so many times of how to make adjustments before the book actually goes to publishing, it can, after a certain point, cost you to make any additional changes. And that change could be upward $200 or more to make those particular changes. What I'm absolutely finding that I like about KDP, and it's still very early and probably too early for me to tell, but just having the power to go in and make adjustments is what I'm loving, and that those adjustments are made almost in real time. The main lesson that I would say what I learned different for this book versus the first two books. Most of my books do have a lot of faith-based content. And as I mentioned from the professor in our previous recording, it was always being careful not to be preachy, but to make sure that you are crafting your message in a way that it can be received. Because the old people used to say you could draw more flies with honey than anything else. But something that I've also learned, especially from as a faith-based writer, is that it's not good to leave your readers just in a faith space without helping them connect the dots from the faith space into practical space. How can I use this in my everyday life? And so that is what I wanted to make sure that I did in with this book. And actually in my early writing, because a lot of this book came from the writing from my conference that I actually started crafting in 2021. So everything in this book is basically pulled out from my conference. And even when I was looking to present my conference to other organizations, they was like, the faith stuff, yeah, that's good. That's cute.
That's fine.
But how is
Pat
this
you on
going
the
to
head
help?
and
Yeah.
escorting you on out.
That's nice. But how can we use this today?
Yeah.
How can our people, or how can the people that we serve, how would they be able to use this information tangibly? And so over the course of time, since 2021 up until now, is being able to perfect upon the content. So even though I already had the content, I had to go back in to add additional value, so that it did have that consumer value. That yes, we are talking about faith principles, but this is how you tangibly apply it to your life, or this is how you can tangibly apply it to your business model. And so that was a learning lesson for me, especially as a faith-based writer, because we do want to lead people there. But I find my 1-2 punch is, how do we apply this super to our natural? And so that has been the biggest lesson. How do we do this? What does this look like? And especially in the business space, what does this look like? Especially how, without we all in here in the workplace, get our shout on or having a kumbaya moment. We still got to be about business to take the place for this. So how do
we on in the break room laid out.
Laid out. We don't have time for that. Get up, ma'am. Get up and get back to your desk.
Get to your work.
So,
Jesus ain't coming down and taking the wheel and driving for you.
He's not doing that. Get up and get back to your laptop. So how do we do this? Still add love, still add faith, still add a little bit of science, but then practically, what does this look like tangibly? So that was the biggest lesson for me. And also making sure that you're bringing your reader into the conversation. So then asking them questions, even while they're reading. Think on this. This is something for you to think about. And having the workbook allows them to explore that idea even further, to help them build upon something that they have been desiring to create themselves. So it's not about me, it's not about my thoughts, but how does this information cultivate or catalyze what it is that you have always been wanting to do, that the reader has always been wanting to do, and to actually jog those or to massage those ideas so it can come out of that idea space into a reality.
Gotcha. And then last thing, so talk a little bit about your what was part of your pre-launch plan to get
Yes, yes,
those
yes.
initial sales on the book.
Yes, so the pre-launch plan was definitely being able to communicate it to my growing network, my growing community. And so my community has doubled since I started my business in 2021. And so it was an opportunity to introduce this to a brand new audience. So, of course, launching, talking about what this is on social media. So I am primarily on LinkedIn. I am considering maybe branching out a little bit, but I felt like most of my audience is on LinkedIn. So definitely doing a campaign there, multiple campaigns there. And also, doing a blast campaign, some email campaigning with my mailing list of individuals that are not connected with me on social media. So doing that 1-2 punch, both on social media and for those who are not connected with me on social media. And so I do have like a periodic blast that I do. It's called Fresh Fire and Purpose, and that is for my email list. And so I shared that with them, the initial announcement. Also being able to develop that I wasn't just announcing a new book, but this is how that you're able to participate in the pre-order campaign. And this is what we have to offer. And this is what's included. So not only, preparing my messaging for social media, preparing my messaging for my email, my marketing campaigns via my email list or subscriber list, but also making sure that on my website was ready. So to be ready to take those orders.
Website messaging is tight. It's like it's tight. It's tight.
It
Go
took me
look at
some
our
years,
website, y'all.
Renee.
The messaging is tight. I'm not mad at it at all. As a copywriter, I'm like, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So I mean, I've been working on that website I used to have, I don't know how many pages at one point on my website, but trying to, condense all of that, but making sure that the messaging was on the web page, making sure that, for those who determined that they wanted to invest in this new experience of mine, that it was going to be done very easy. That the transaction piece wasn't going to be hard. They would be able to see what they were going to get a demonstration of that, and be able to, transact very easy. Now, before, what I learned in that lesson, Denise Renee, was initially people could go ahead and purchase on my website. It's for online sales, but it was just connected to PayPal. And it used to be with PayPal that you could just click the button and just check out as a guest, but it's not like that anymore. And so if you're with PayPal being integrated with the website, it was going to force the buyer or the reader to have to create an account, which does not make the transaction process
Easy.
smooth.
Right.
So I was able then to tap into the actual website's payment processing. And so they're able to process the order directly on my website without having to hop over someplace else.
Right.
Now, PayPal is still an option if you
Right.
choose. For those who already have it, great. And that's how they prefer. But then being able to create 6 or 7 or 8 other payment methods where they're able to pay directly, whether it was with their credit card or even if they needed to do an installment plan. Those are options that are there because you want to be able to accommodate your readers regardless of where they are economically or where they are even technology wise
or where they are in the world, because some regions, if you've just done a presentation a virtual presentation in Ghana, PayPal may not be available there or something else. So, having multiple options and touch points for the way a person can interact with you or buy from you is very key. It's very key.
Absolutely. And so that's just making those adjustments there. And then, of course, on the website, speaking of the website, having a little graphic that says, hey, the girl got a new book. So putting that on the front page when you first come to the page, that there's a new book there. Yes, you're going to see that cover of that book there. You're going to see my face, but you're going to see the book as well. And making it very easy on the very front page where you could go directly to my authors, or, you know exactly where the books are, and it'll take you exactly there. And so those are things, just little things that I've learned along the way, just by engaging with other leaders such as yourself, Denise Renee, or other leaders that says, it'd be helpful. It's not a criticism, but it would be helpful, because we're in the world of one click nation. So apparently we don't have the attention span anymore. So it's really, can I get to this in one click, basically, or one or two.
Make it easy. Yeah. Make it easy.
Yeah. So I think I've taken those notes to heart and made those adjustments on my website. So, and as I mentioned, even though that this was a pre-campaign type of a thing, and it went okay. Like I said, I would have loved for it to have gone better. But I knew that what I was doing this time, it was going to be a little bit more robust, and it may cost a little more than what people are used to paying for, but it's about the value. Like, what is the value here?
Just because you launched a few weeks ago, beginning of July, hello, Christmas is coming up. So you could be planning to launch again. There's nothing saying you can't have, multiple launches of your book just because it's not brand new. It's still within the first year. So you could do a big push for the Christmas time area as a gift box.
Absolutely.
The leadership, the perfect gift for leaders this Christmas.
Absolutely. And I mean, and so that's why I'm saying this is just the first step. Publishing the book is step one, literally. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it was a 9-year journey. That might be true, but this is literally step one. Now that it's out of me, then how do we get it to the market in a way? And so doing those initial communications, doing follow-up communications, doing last call communications, different things like that. So I did see a couple of sales come in on, the last call, those kind of things. And it just so happened that another sale, it slipped under the radar because I didn't take it down off of the website.
That's okay. Hey, we'll take it.
Hey, I'm not mad.
Nope, not at all.
Not upset at all. So, but yeah, these are just little tweaks. So I would just say to any writers that's already in the process or aspiring writers, just make sure you calculate all of your numbers effectively. And communication is the key. So whether it's social media, whether it's your email campaign, if you do have someone that's marketing for you, that would be great. I would love to have that. So that is probably my next step as far as having someone to market for me. That has a little bit more expertise, but I figured out how to do enough stuff where it doesn't look like it's done in crayon. So if you have to, listen,
don't be disrespecting Crayola.
Listen, if you
or the 5-year-old,
I don't need it to look like Etch a Sketch. So if you can
leave Etch a Sketch alone.
So, utilizing platforms such as Canva, if you don't have, that's a platform that I've used as far as with a lot of, being able to create those mock-ups and different things like that. Those are very helpful. They're very user-friendly. So it'll help you if you are having to craft your message yourself. You have the ability to do so. So, utilize that. Make sure everything looks good. Make sure it's aligned. So if you need help with that, platforms such as Canva or the like or anything like that, those are helpful. Those are ways that are helpful. If you do have a website that can help you with your communications, there's a lot of integrations now on the backside of websites. It's a one-stop shop. You can do all of your marketing. You can design all of your marketing with your logos and all of that. So definitely use the power of social media. Use the power of your website to get the message out. Use the power of certain platforms that will help you with developing your message and to make sure that your message looks good. I think all of those will be helpful. And pushing the message and keep pushing the message, not in a way where it's getting on people's nerves, but keep pushing the message. So at least a few times a week. So I got to get back on my grind as far as, still communicating, now that the pre-launch is over. Is now the continued conversation.
Yeah. We could talk forever. But we gonna I done created a second edition of the podcast. It's gonna be a whole second episode. Okay, it's gonna be part two. But that's okay.
Yes.
You had a lot to share, and like I said, in the first one, I love the fact that we're catching you really at the launch stage of your book, because so many times it's so easy to hear someone who has, I've sold 1 million books already. I've been doing this for 15 years already. My business has already been established, and those stories are great and they're inspiring. But it's also important to see and hear from someone who, hey, I'm just getting started, and this
I'm
is
in the
what it's looking
journey.
like for me. Yeah, I'm in the journey. So, and the
Yeah,
journey, they're in the journey. They're just in a different place of the journey. So,
absolutely.
all parts of the journey is valuable. So, thank you once again
Absolutely.
for letting me run the cameras back up and catch part two of this episode. Thank you for hanging out, and I will see y'all in the next one. And I'm going to end it like we ended the first one. If you're on the fence, if you're thinking about getting started, just get started. Let's go. Let's ride that one.
Let's go.
Your
Let's go.
message is not for you; it's for someone else. It's for that audience. So let's get it started.